Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to HR Week 2021. Listen, if you've been with us since day one, which is at the start of the week, Monday, and maybe hopefully you've been with us Tuesday, Wednesday, and now you're with us right now on today's day. It's all about HR development. So we jump into everything an HR professional needs to know, wants to know, would love to know how in terms of HR development. So we have real and practical stories all about those processes of HR transformation. We're looking at performance consulting, personal career paths, e-learning, business coaching practices, and guess what? Also something quite special as well today. We're really looking at a perspective towards youth, towards young talent, how to really develop that young talent forward. Also, I know there are many of you watching now, students, young people, young talent, people maybe at the beginning of their HR careers, and I'm sure today will be quite valuable for you as well. And like excuse me, and like our other days of HR Week 2021, we will have, slightly more than 20 great sessions, lots of valuable ideas, discussion, debates, conversations on really where to navigate and move forward within the HR landscape. Right. Let me just tell you again, remember we have our networking sessions. We have two of those today. This is where we ask you to get involved, to share your perspective, to give us your ideas and as I say, perspectives on certain topics as well. So we've been doing those as we do daily, twice a day. Also, remember the HR Expo Zone, accessible throughout the day. So this is where you have a chance to, at your leisure, stroll around the HR Expo Zone, really get to know our sponsors, get to know more than 100 vendors and see what they have to offer. And again, looking for that match, a match which is right for you, right for your company, book a meeting and then take that conversation forward as well. We have the HR Library, which is full of great resources regarding our speakers, regarding what they have, extra resources like podcasts, books, PDFs, ideas, lots of great things you can download as well. Remember, we reward you for engaging with HR Week 2021. So the more you engage in terms of downloading material, in terms of speaking and sharing your opinion on our sessions, in terms of visiting booths, in terms of subscribing, the more you get engaged, we reward you with credits. The more credits you have, the more badges you get, the masterclasses you get for free as well. So a little bit more about that a little bit later on, but remember, we reward you for engaging with HR Week 2021. We want you to get engaged, to do that, and you'll see the rewards coming through as it goes. Right, let's move on right now to our first session. This is all about HR development, a time to secure your own mask first. So as HR professionals, your work revolves around developing employees, but the question is who actually develops the HR function? Now we're going to hear ways to really successfully blend expertise with lean and traditional management approaches and build a future fit skill set as HR. All that to come right now from the next person who I'm going to invite right now to our virtual playground. Please welcome to our virtual stage right now, Head of Product and Thought Leader for Learning at AI HR, Alex Tosovic. Alex?
Hi, Peter. It's very great to be here. And it was a great intro from you. I am surprised by HR Week every year on year, and excited to talk about HR development today.
Good morning. My first thing was good morning. Where are you right now, Alex? Love to know.
I'm in Rotterdam at the moment. Gloomy day, but
Sorry, Rotterdam. Say Rotterdam.
Rotterdam, yeah, in the Netherlands, yeah.
Okay, it's a gloomy day outside, but hey, inside and in our virtual platform, you see there's actually sunshine on our virtual playground. So wherever we are, it's sunny. And I'm sure right now, Alex, you're going to brighten up our days Thursday with your insights. Remember, towards the end, I'll come back on in. Questions, hopefully, again, listeners, you've got questions, you're curious, you'd like to get involved with this session, pop in your questions at the end. I'll ask them directly to Alex. But in the meantime, Alex, take it away.
Thank you very much, Peter. And as I've had a really good intro to today, I'm going to be talking about, who develops HR, and as Academy to Innovate HR, this is a question that we've been trying to answer, well, successfully so far, on how do we build and how do we develop HR. So today I'm going to be sharing with you key things and key steps towards your own development as well. But before we get into that, I want to do a short history 101, and this is not going to take forever, not like your traditional history classes, but just thinking about what is it that, and why do we have the branding that we have at the moment of HR, or maybe some stereotypes. So if we look at Second Industrial Revolution, this was the time of manufacturing, and in that moment, HR served more as a welfare officer, and it was important that we take, basically our workers are healthy. When we moved to the World Wars, the HR practice became a little bit more complicated, and we really needed to set up some procedures, compliance, and we served more as sort of almost a legal guardian. Looking at the phase of globalization, and we moved more towards this hiring and personnel management and firing type of environment, where we were still more on the side of the employer rather than the employee. And then we moved later to HR management, where this is the first time in the history of development of HR that we have actually thought about our employees as assets that can actually increase the organizational effectiveness and really push the enterprise forward. And then the last era that we are in after 2000s onwards is the role of the strategic partner, and we hear that a lot. We want the HR to have the seat at the table. HR is a strategic partner to the business, and this is actually a new role, well, relatively new, if you look at the timeline of HR being there for the business and leading the business as well, and making sure it achieves where it needs to go. And I'm not going to repeat the COVID story now, because we all know what happened and what kind of disruption we've had and what kind of learnings as well. But the question remains is also, what is the identity of HR going forward? What is the next phase of the development? And towards the end of the presentation, I'm also going to answer this question about what is actually that's coming next. And if we look at some of the numbers, we see that 21% of HR professionals are future ready, which means we have quite a gap here to fill. 60% of professionals are less efficient than the more tech savvy colleagues that they have, and 41% actually uses technology and digital tools to and leverages them for the business effectiveness and so on. And you can see that the survey is based on a quite significant sample data that we have run. So having this in mind, it's important that we understand how do we develop as an HR function to be ready for what's coming next. And what I've, in my talks to many different HR people as well while we are developing our courses, and it's also, building a development plan is both an exciting endeavor, but also a labyrinth. There's so many resources out there. You can either go on YouTube, or you can get almost any e-learning provider to provide content for you. But the question is still, where am I now? Where do I want to go? And how do I build a good development plan for an HR professional? So I'm going to take you through the steps here today. And these are really coming from a place where we, and actually me in a role here at AHR as a product development, where we are building content, we really had to understand what is the environment we're playing in to be able to help the HR function as a whole the most. So here's some questions that we would also want to, there's some questions that we would want to answer through today. So first question is where I am now, or where am I now? And here it's important to understand what is your persona in HR. So on our side, we have worked on understanding who is the audience, or who do we have in HR, and how can these roles move, and what do you need for which of the roles. So if you look at the slide, we see that we have 4 personas: the advisor, the practice expert, service champion, and the strategist. And all of these roles can be actually plotted on this chart, and this chart is going to get a little bit more complex, but bear with me, it's going to be very useful going forward. So you see that all the roles that we have mapped here can move from junior, intermediate, senior to executive, and there's different seniority. So if we think of the advisor role, I assume that most of you already have an idea what roles fall into here, but these would be the roles of an HR business partner, HR consultant, HR manager, global HR VP, and so on. Then you can also have your service champion, which are the roles that would fall more into the shared services types of roles that make sure that the core HR processes are happening, that the business is functioning well. And we all know that if HR functions well, there's no questions. If there's a problem, everyone knows about it, which is, a little bit unrewarding experience when you're working in the function itself. But we are there to make sure that the enterprise goes forward. And then when it comes to the next persona that we have, it's the practice expert. So these would be the roles that you would usually have in centers of excellence if you're a bigger enterprise. These would be your talent managers, heads of learning, data scientists, compensation and benefits specialist, and these roles are typically the roles that went deep into the expertise and are usually sitting on a more regional level, depending on your organization. And finally, we get to the executive roles within HR, which are more CHRO, VPs, executives within different fields of HR, and so on. So if you look at this picture and my busy slide, we've tried to map here different roles that exist and how these roles tend to move. And I don't know about you, but for me, in my own development, I really like to have an idea of how I can expand and where we can go forward. And that's not always clear within an HR function. So for some of you that are in bigger enterprises, this might, you might have had or already worked with some of the roles and so on. For some of you that are in smaller organizations, it might happen that you are either having less personas or you're having more people doing one on the same role, but it's really important to sort of plot what is it that you have at the moment. So if we take an example from one of our roles, and just to take you through the process, and we take, for example, Lindani, she's a complement specialist working in a global enterprise. In charge mostly of complement practices, make sure that the strategy is translated and implemented through complement practices, and she would like to understand, what is her development plan. So if we look at the chart again, we can see that she's currently in this role as a complement specialist, relatively senior role, which means that she probably has some deep functional expertise at the moment. Maybe she has been exposed to some leadership experience as well, in maybe more informal leadership roles such as project management and so on and so forth, or maybe some specialists. And she would like to understand, where would I like to grow? So she can pick one of the personas that we have talked about. So Lindani, and let's take this as an example, would like maybe to grow as a strategist, and she would like to join Valeria in a more executive or management team type of role. So in order for her to understand what needs to happen for her to grow towards this role, we would need to sort of answer the formula of development in a way. Yes, I'm mixing development with formulas from math. I never thought I'm going to do that, but here we go. My mom would be proud. In order to get to the business impact, we need to have a set of functional competencies, behavioral ones, and some leadership competencies. Some of you are very familiar with all of these, and in order to get to a real business impact, we would need to sort of leverage all of these. And in Lindani's example, we can assume that she has had already some functional expertise in place, that she needs to work on her behavioral and to work on leadership skills. Both functional and leadership skills are something that we are not necessarily surprised with. We've seen this before, but in the era that is coming, it was quite the challenge for us at AIHR as well to define what are these behavioral competencies that we need to be able to lead the workforce where it's going in the future to actually get to the business impact that we want. And here we have developed the T-shaped professional framework. This is coming, the inspiration from this is coming also from the workforce and in the terms of holacracy, where where the employees are actually not necessarily always assigned to a role, but they have skills that are interchangeable depending on what work needs to be done. Simplifying that and making it more comprehensive for HR, we have outlined the 4 competencies that each HR professional should have, and these are data-driven in terms of how do I interpret data and use it to make decisions. Business acumen is, do I understand the market and where my business is to be able to help it? How do I use digital tools to for more agile to manage agile processes, not just agile processes, but also change? I am apologizing if I speak too fast. I'm on the clock here and I have so much to share and a lot of enthusiasm about what I'm talking about. The last one is the people advocacy, which is basically how do we preserve the culture, make sure our people develop, and so on. There's also more on these in breakdown of the competencies, but you get the core idea. So if we look at the level deeper and we think of the roles that I shared with you, and we look at Lindani as someone who is a practice expert in her field, we can see where we can also plot here where she would need to move potentially. So when it comes to the different competencies that we have within the model, when it comes to the data literacy, we can see that data-driven and being able to translate analytics to make decision is one of the key things that's important for this specific competence, or when we're talking about skills. When it comes to the business acumen, it's understanding where your company is at the moment, what are internal factors or external factors that are influencing it, who is our customer, how do we serve it, and what is necessary from wherever I am in the HR function to basically help my customers as well. Then it's also about strategy co-creation and how much can you impact the strategy both of HR and the company with what you're doing. HR mastery, which is more related to how do I actually use the knowledge that I have to support the organization as a whole. When it comes to digital, we can dive into this when it comes to technology and being able to design digital processes and use technology to leverage leverage technology for efficiency. And of course, people advocacy, which is a really important piece. And we here talk about culture, which is a big thing. And we all know that culture doesn't just show up, but it's something that's built and nurtured. We hear a lot about employee experience, so we find this that is an essential piece of the framework. Communication and change as well, and the final thing is ethics, risk, and sustainability, and this is where we also include diversity and inclusion as well. So if we look at the framework itself, we can see that not all competencies are equally relevant for everyone. So here we have plotted which type of roles would actually fit where. And if we go back to our example of Lindani, we can see that her development actually would be mainly in analytics translation, context interpretation, and customer orientation. So then the next step for her would be to develop both training to understand what is it that from the formal learning that I would need to know to get to a more strategic role, like Valeria is, and what are these critical work experiences that I would need to design for myself so that I'm able to stretch in these areas. So what we have done so far, we have set the goal for Lindani. We have actually seen where she is. We have set the goal for her. We have used the framework to help her understand what are the competencies she needs to develop. And the thing that's left is actually that we build a development plan with her on how she can grow to the role, where we have already outlined in the T-shaped HR professional the critical competencies for the future. So that's in brief her development plan. Another thing is that I wanted to answer is something that I've mentioned in the beginning. What is happening next, and what is it that we would need to do? And what we see at the moment in the workforce is that employees are behaving more like consumers at this stage. They are looking at an employer differently. They have different expectations. We have also had quite a different ways of working. That's not going to go to the ways that we've worked before. There's a lot of stretch for HR to make sure you preserve culture in a disrupted workforce where people are working from home. Some of them are feeling isolated. Some of them, really enjoy the remote experience as well. And we are moving from employer world into more human experience management, not just human resource management at this stage. And the challenge for HR is also, how do you upskill ourselves, and how do we upskill the workforce that we have that is becoming quite different than what we've been used to. And then we come to the chart that I've shared in the beginning. And actually, the next step in the HR future will be, how do I support the enterprise and my organization as a digital business advisor as well? How do I make sure that I can sustain and support the change that's coming, and the disruptions that are more frequent, and such an agile workforce? And we have many different examples of this, how these worlds collide, coming from IT departments within organizations having their own processes within an environment that maybe is more hierarchical as well. And then how do you integrate HR processes in both places? And also a well-being advocate. We see that employees, as I said, are more acting as well, or having expectations as a consumer of their employee experience and well-being. And how do we support all of this while making sure that the business survives, and not just survives, but also thrives, supported by HR. So another point that I would just like to share, and I'm almost done. I see Peter coming here. Homework in 3 steps. If there's something you would like to do as an HR superstar, if you were looking at this from your own angle, map yourself to the 4 persona, define desired role, define competencies you would like to develop, and use the T-shaped framework to build learning paths. For the organization, it's the same thing, and you can do the same exercise. If you would like to get the T-shaped competency framework, you can scan the code and download it, or I can provide the resource later. And for the end, I just wanted to share that to empower people to do their best work, you need to empower yourself. And I hope that with this presentation, I have given you a shortcut to building a good development plan for yourself. If you have any questions, I'm available on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to discuss this with you. And scene. I don't hear you. Sorry, I think your audio might have broken off.
There we are. Okay, should be back right now. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, listeners, you've heard what Alex has to say. You're curious. You'd like to know more. You'd like to take that conversation further. Link up over LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'll be able to collaborate and take that conversation further. As I said. In the meantime, Alex, it's been insightful. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon within the HR community as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Right, we move on now. But before we do that, just let me explain a little bit about the HR community that we're building. We've been building it for quite a few years now, and it's certainly going in the right direction. So this HR week is all about resources, all about content, all about really rethinking those HR strategies, and really it is a community that we're building this week. But again, if you like what you hear this week, outside of this week, throughout the year, the HR community, HR World community, is all about bringing together this community and sharing resources, sharing conversations, sharing ideas. So if you'd like to get involved, if you'd like to join that community, all you have to do is go to the HR World Cafe. All the information is there, and again, we've got ideas like we have the magazine, we have webinars, we have member-only videos, we have again conversations between members to really move forward. So well worth checking out if you're an HR professional at the beginning of your career or towards the end of the career or somewhere in between. This certainly will be right for you. And again, we've got on there also, there are 9 different communities of practice. So we have more than 1,000 members, regional members, in fact. And so many different things, so many different ideas. We kind of split things up into 9 communities of practice. For example, we've got mental health, we've got digital workplace, learning culture, and so much more as well. So again, certainly something for you. And remember here at HR World, HR Week 2021, the more you get engaged, the more you get rewarded. And we reward you with masterclasses for every 100 credits you gain. Okay, HR World Cafe, check it out there. Everything's on there you need to know. But again, the more you get engaged, the more credits you get. The more credits you get, up to 100 each time we give you a masterclass. Couldn't get better than that, certainly for a Thursday morning. Right, let's move on. We move on very shortly now over to our next session, which is all about recruitment and retention with young talents.